podcast. Here we go. Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, my own personal monster, but he needs no fixing. It's Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
So this week, as mentioned in the description that you clicked on this, you know what it is. We're fixing monsters this week. It's about time too. They've been bad
you know
for
what
too
this
long.
is. You know what this is. This has been 5 years in coming.
This is the thing that had to happen. It's built up and it's built up. It's gotten under my skin more and more, and now it is finally time that we do another free design share with GW, that they're welcome to steal all of these ideas. We freely and openly say all of ideas presented in this thing are free of any kind of claim by us. Use them freely, please. There we go.
And you all get nice welcoming Tom today and cranky, frustrated Vince. Congratulations.
Because Vince is ultimately the super Timmy who loves big stompy monsters and wants them to work. Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'll play whatever is good.
No, you it's not just you'll play whatever's good. It's that you particularly prefer to have hordes of annoying infantry to move around the board.
Yeah. Because they're just better.
Because they're just better, yes. And that doesn't bother you.
Yeah. No.
All right. So, but it bothers me because I do not like at all moving around. Like, I'll move a unit of 30 dudes. That's fine.
I mean, it's fine. I have trays. It's fine.
A unit of 30 dudes is my maximum. Warhammer is perfect when you have somewhere between, like, let's say 25 and 50 models on the table. That's like in your army. That's the
like
correct number of things.
That's a unit and a half. What are you talking about?
You can see why I'm excited for Giants. This is my perfect army. You say that my army is going to be somewhere between, like, 7 and 11 figs, and I'm like, yes, please. Now.
I don't know how Stormcast never just captured you with your model range window of a perfect army.
Well, one, you're not wrong. Two, I do have a Stormcast army. I mean,
I know, but you've never actually owned that. And what I mean by that is, like, it's never been like a project that you love or that you play.
No, that's true. I'll tell you what will make that happen, Tom. You ready? If they
dragons.
If they make their dragons not be bad, that would be number one, because that's what I want to play. I want to play the big dragons.
Right. I have a painted one I'd love to put on the table.
Sure, I would buy a ton of Star Drakes if they were good. Speaking of monsters. And two, if they get a new book where the dragons are good, then I will do Skig's Ratcast.
Oh yeah, Ratcast? No,
yeah, that would be an army I would dig on to high heck and back. Because converting one little holy warrior out of Skig Fig that I did was actually super fun. I would do a whole army of Skaven who've been redeemed and follow Sigmar. Anyways, not what we're here to talk about. Let's start with the not news. So it's the launch week of 9th edition 40k, which means this is not a week for AoS. That's what it means.
Yeah, like he was like, we don't have news this week, and I was like, of course, it's the black hole of 9th edition. Yeah. Like, this happened a couple years ago, 4 years ago to be exact, and like, this is what happens. Mm-hmm. We'll get a solid couple weeks of nothing, and that's okay.
It's fine.
We'll fill the air. It's fine.
There's always more to talk about, like, say, figs and monsters. But for now, we got a rumor engine still, and I think it's an AoS rumor engine.
It's a bird. It's a bird with a key.
Mm-hmm. And by AoS, I mean, I think it's, like, part of a terrain piece. That's my best guess.
So the last similar model, right, was the bird in the Garden of Moor that you could position on any terrain piece, like any of the Garden of Moor stuff. And so, like, mine is, like, perched on my gate.
Yeah, sure.
And it's strikingly similar to this bird. Now the question is that related?
I would love to see, the thing we've always talked about. First of all, please don't try to force a new Garden of Moor on us for the 4th time. We've already repackaged and re-released that set 3 times. And
No, it's an entirely interchangeable graveyard with more than 4 mausoleums.
Sure.
And so it's an entire range. Here's the call. It's an entire range of Garden of Moor, like the Chaos Dreadhold. And so just all of the graveyard and all of the mausoleums.
Sure.
And all of the gates an interchangeable beauty. I mean, it's not, but sure.
I do want to agree with Martin, who just said in the comments that bird is on my Inquisitor. That's what you use it for. I do agree with Martin. I all those little birds and animals, I just have a little part in a bits box that's just like random creatures, and I use them on figs that I want to have pets. Yeah, that's how you use them. But anyways, look, this is one of those super frustrating rumor engines because it's exactly clear what it is. Like it's a bird with a key on a rock. Like no
not
question.
on a rock, it's on ruins. Like I would even go as far as to say this looks like one of the broken Garden of Moor posts.
Yeah, sure. Now, here's what I would love. One of the things we talked about a while back, and this could easily be part of a larger kit. So the answer is this is a new big monster where this is a thing sitting on the base because they like putting, this kind of tiny stuff on the base. So either it's a new big monster and this is just something hanging out on the base. Very possible. This was true with like Archeon's base, right? He has the ruins with the little ravens and birds and stuff on it.
Yep.
So fine. Or it's a new terrain. It's just a new terrain kit, and it's a thing sitting on the terrain kit, right? So I would. We talked a long time ago about having realm-specific terrain kits, and a lot of the stuff we've gotten so far is kind of focused on Azerite ruins and Azer this and Azer that, even though like we don't actually play in Azer. So I would love for this to be like some kind of new Shattered Dominion type of kit, right? Where not the bases, but where it's like actually a Shaishan kit or an Ulgu kit, full of like spooky terrain. Because we have a lot of like holy Sigmarite terrain. I think it would be cool to have some more sinister terrain than just, by the way, the tiny mausoleums, which don't actually work really well on the table as interactive terrain.
They really don't.
Like, no, they're not. No, they're great for like a part of like a Mordheim or a Warcry board or something. That's fine. You can, run around them and hide behind them when you're just dealing with like human-sized dudes. So I have no problem with that. But
so there's the call, a new Warcry starter set.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd be down with that. Yeah, that's Travis. That's a good call there. Yeah.
Yep.
But I would love a Shaishan thing to be reimagined. Just like some new spooky terrain kit that's actually meant to be played on, like the dioceses and the ruins and the things we have now that are actually really friendly to playing a game with them. Right? You can move whole units around them. You can get people up on top of them. They work, by the way, in Warcry and in AoS, which is actually really handy. I would love to see something like that for spooky stuff, because we only have a lot of like, behold what was the glory of Sigmar type of terrain pieces. That's the main stuff we've got right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I would love something a little bit spookier, a little bit like either Shaish or Ulgu base. Mm-hmm. So. Wow, we just milked like 7 minutes
out of the news. Yeah, there you go. Out of a rumor engine of a tiny bird with a key.
The news, people.
There it is. News over. Fastest news ever.
11 minutes.
Okay, done. Great. Pick of the week. What do you got, homie?
I'm gonna spruik the marathon that Mr. Mephisto did for mental health. You were on it. I was not. I had a nephew's birthday that got rescheduled for the weekend, and so I was not able to make that, unfortunately. I would have loved to have been able to contribute and be a part of this fundraiser, but he raised some major bank for mental health.
$7,000, yes. Which that is a testament to the incredible generosity and community spirit that exists within the people who are playing this game. I was absolutely blown away. Everybody who contributed or watched or shared or everything like that was awesome, because I mean, this is a really important topic, as we talked about on the show. This is a time that strains a lot of people's mental health. Like, it needs to be talked about now more than ever, especially in a time when we are separated and don't have our social networks that we might normally rely on to, keep ourselves balanced and centered and stuff like that. And so I thought it was a really important cause. I was glad to take part. Meph's a freaking hero and did an amazing job.
He did. So check it out. It's worth your time.
And he broke it up into 14 handy, roughly 2-hour segments. So So there you go. You can watch all the individual things, because he would have all of us on for like 2 hours, just 2 hour
Right.
blocks. So he
Yep.
basically did 14 shows.
Right. Right.
Is what happened.
Yep.
I would state that during the Rerolling Ones crew, which were on basically shortly after me, and I went to lunch right after that, and then I came back and I was watching, and they told a story about getting some Muppets Evolved tokens, and made a joke about me writing a Muppets Evolved game as I was listening to it. So I said, okay, and I wrote a Muppets Evolved game. So I sent that over to Meth and shared it in the Discord, and now we're gonna do a Muppets Evolved one shot on some night for a single night instead of Soulbound.
Soulbound.
Yeah, so there you go.
Fantastic.
Many great moments from that, and I'm sure they'll eventually. Right now, he just uploaded all of it. I know Haywo already uploaded the Circus Peanuts story, which is
Oh my gosh, it was so amazing.
It's fantastic.
Oh, like just watching you all's responses as he moved through that story was it was
great.
Delightful.
It was great. My pick of the week, I've got two things I want to share, continuing to break the rules, not this time and every time. And the first thing I want to share is a great video that 2 Plus Tough put up earlier today on what GHB 2021 should have. And he actually, Tom, I want to tell you about this idea, because I think 2 Plus cracked the code.
Oh?
His video is mainly on the open play section.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And his idea, I won't give the whole core, the crux of the video away. It's about a 17-minute video, and he gives a lot of his reasonings and stuff. But the crux of his idea is to put Path to Glory and Path to Glory expansions into the open play section.
Amen. Done.
Does that not make perfect sense?
Done.
It's pointsless. It's an easy, natural progression of how to build.
Rip it out of the battle tomes.
Well, yeah, whatever. I'm sure people would want to keep it in the battle tomes, but I don't care. It's fine. I would prefer to move it. I don't mind its presence in the battle tomes. It's just in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't hate it in the battle tomes. I hate its location in the battle tomes, in between the two sections I'm trying to read.
The allegiance rules and the battalions.
Right. It's like, please
get out.
Why?
Get out. Out.
Just flip it. Just put it before the allegiance abilities. I don't understand. It's like the easiest thing. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe for 3rd edition AoS we'll get there.
It's like the simplest formatting thing, guys. Like, you have to know how your users are using this book. And whatever. Okay. So, to me, I was like, that makes so much sense to have Path to Glory as the open play thing, because a truly new player doesn't rock up and be like, well, let me just put a bunch of figs on the table. They don't know what the heck that means. They need some kind of structure, some way in. Yep. And Path to Glory is the perfect way in.
It is. I don't disagree with that.
And then they could do things like, as he mentions, expansions and battle plans and things that are specific to Path to Glory. And it would just be like, they could rebalance it a little bit. They could add in new stuff. It's so good. And like, look, no offense to the Sky battle thing, which is neat and fun, but like, let's just take a moment here to really compare these two ideas. Looking at the community, what's going to get more play? The Sky battle thing or a Path to Glory expansion taking up the majority of open play? I mean,
I like the Sky thing, but that's just me.
I understand.
I would use that before the Path to Glory.
I'm saying if you had to examine the whole market, which one do you think is?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not saying, and as he says, it's not like the Sky thing was bad or we want to see that gone. It's just this is where this should be, right?
Right.
So what I thought was interesting about that is I think he's looking at a really cool idea there, and it makes me think that we should be re-examining kind of all the sections and thinking about how do we better synergize not only each section with each other, because as he points out, then it's a springboard for people to go from open to narrative to matched to build their armies to do these things. But also, so not only should we think about how we can synergize the three sections better, but also think about what are we actually putting in here that's of value, right?
Yep.
So, crack the code on that one. So check out the video. 2 Plus, I'm with you, buddy. Let's get this moving. So I think you've done it. Second thing I want to mention, folks, people, if you have not yet completed the survey, please complete the survey that is linked in the show description. It is on balance. We will be talking about it next week. I was originally going to do it this week, but then I didn't have time to actually synergize all of it. So I said, you know what, forget it. We'll leave it open for a little longer. Let some more people vote. We've had a really good response thus far. You could open up the thing right now while I'm talking. And in the time that I've been talking about it, you could have already completed it because it's that fast. It's like 30 seconds, maybe a minute to do the survey. It's so easy. So fill it out, please. The more data we get, the better representation of the AoS community this has. So I'll probably tweet it out one more time this weekend, but please do fill it out now. That would be awesome. If you've already done your survey, thank you very much for doing the survey. So those are my 2 picks. Tom, I see a bunch of cards on the table behind you. I don't see many models. What's going on, buddy? What are we working on? What's on the what hobby time we've been doing? Oh, there we go. Have you been working on it?
No, it's the first time I've touched it in like 2 months. But I just like I have some professional stuff going on that I've been focusing on, and so I'm doing work stuff right now.
Gotcha.
The answer. Yeah.
Well, stop that.
Yeah.
Spend a little bit of time, put some paint on something, Tom.
Yeah.
You've got to be an exemplar here for the community.
Man, COVID's getting to me, and I don't know when I'm going to get to an event again, and so the motivation has waned. And I don't even know what army I would want to put paint on. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to find something. Send Tom some happy feelings. Send Tom some pictures of your cool models on Twitter. That way he gets inspired and wants to paint something. Do something. We got to help Tom out here. I feel like we got to clap for you, Tom. You're like Tinkerbell over here. We got to get you flying again.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I frequently think of you much like Tinkerbell, so it's really not just this that's prompted it.
I know it's my dress.
It's your pixie-ish face.
It's a pixie-ish face, the green miniskirt that I love.
You normally are wearing a green miniskirt. That's true. People don't see it during the show, but it is actually normally on. Yeah.
Yeah. I keep it classy in real life, even though.
Sure. For myself, I've been working on finishing up this Space Marine dude. He's almost done now, and we're taking a long time with him. Go into all of the effort. This is a maximum effort piece. But I really like him. I really love painting Crimson Fists. I like how this guy's coming out. He's only probably got maybe another hour of work actually I need to put into him. So he's almost done now. And he's been a lot of fun. I'm thinking what I might do is I've done like 3 different Crimson Fist captains, and I might go and touch them all up together, bring them all up to speed now that I've had a little more experience doing this, and put them into like a unit or something, and go for bring them all up and do a Golden Demon entry out of them, like the leadership of the fist. Like I said, we focus on the fists here. So that's what I've been working on. After I finish that up, I finished that girl as well this weekend and shared her, that little Renaissance girl. After I finish that up, I need to figure out what I'm going to work on next. I'm honestly not sure at this point, so we'll see.
You're giving me a hard time, and you don't even know what you're going to do next. Come on now.
I'm still painting something. I've been painting hours and hours on this thing, man. I got projects. I just don't know what I want to do. I might do something chaosy. Not sure. We'll see. But at any rate, that's what my hobby time's been. I hope all of you out there are painting either right now or when you're listening to this in the future. Hello in the future. And that you've got some getting your models on the table. I mean, really, Tom, you know what I'm waiting on. I don't want to get into anything too big because I'm waiting on them giants.
Yeah,
that's what's going on.
I know for you, giants are the big thing. But
for most people, giants are the big thing. That's what they are. They're giant.
And indeed, yeah.
Yep. I did get a game in with my Whirlwind's Edge this weekend, and
nice.
It was very fun. So that went well. Ironically, against another city's army and a Gitz army. It's one of the first times I've gotten to play Gitz in quite a while, so that was cool. Okay, so let's get to our main segment tonight, Tom. Let's talk monsters, buddy. So monsters are bad, right?
I mean, a lot of them.
Sure.
And when we say monsters, let's ground set. When we say bad and when we say monsters,
yeah,
is we need to qualify both of those things.
Agreed.
When we say monsters in this segment, what we're primarily talking about are units with the monster keyword, but not only the monster keyword.
Yeah. Often that's a thing, But there are other examples. Steam
that are
tanks,
not
ironclads, things
that
like
don't have the monster keyword that functionally are serving that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are these singular units, like most of the time they are a unit that is a single model.
Yeah.
And here's the qualification. We're not talking about those with the hero keyword.
Yes. Well, we'll mention occasionally a little bit of it, but to me, whenever you put a hero on top, it usually just becomes like it's the hero, not the monster that you care about.
Right.
Because you could put a guy on top or a gal on top with like one attack at 6s and 6s, no rend, 1 damage, and it would still be infinitely more valuable than the monster without it.
Yeah.
Right?
So here's a great example of this. The loon boss on Mangler's Squig.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that dude is bringing almost nothing to the table.
Right.
But his hero keyword is worth its weight in gold.
Correct, because instantly what it means is you can use command abilities, like even on yourself, right? So not only do you probably have one on your scroll, but you can use all the basics, and you can use them on yourself. Fail a charge, you can reroll your own charge. Need to get reroll 1s to hit, you can do that to yourself, right? Not to mention whatever's on your scroll, okay?
Right. And, you can take items.
You can take items. You potentially could take command traits if you're the general, right? Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Heroes are often more valuable in more battle plans, right? Either because you need a hero outright to take a point, or because heroes leaders can protect you from losing points in things like Scorched Earth. They can give you extra points, right? So yes, there is one scenario now that cares about monsters, but I would note that these big monster heroes we're talking about also get that one. Still do that well, right? So it's a double dip, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about those units that are singular, they're single models, that are also not heroes.
Correct.
And in general, this game has largely not found the right balance.
Yep.
Now, there are exceptions, and there are good versions of these, and we're going to talk about those.
Yeah. Yep.
But we're also going to talk about the overwhelming mass of not so good.
Yeah, and that is truly the destructive bulk of this particular thing.
Indeed.
All right, let's talk about the Fundaments. Why are they naturally bad? Why is 10 dudes or 20 dudes or 30 dudes, which is often what you're getting, by the by,
right,
for the cost of this? I would point out that you can get, at current costs, you can basically, it's not exact, but it's pretty close. You can get 30 Longbeards for the cost of a Hell Pit Abomination. That's not exactly 1-to-1. The Hell Pit is just slightly cheaper, but I mean just. Okay? So 30 Longbeards or a Hell Pit. That's what we're talking about here.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And the meta concerns here are pretty obvious, as people in the comments are already shouting out, right?
Right.
30 models are simply better because they are 30 people. They count as 30 people for taking an objective, and ultimately this is an objective-based game, right? One model counts as one model for taking an objective.
Right. So it has to do with model counts. It has to do with wounds.
Sure.
So that Hell Pit Abomination doesn't have 30 wounds.
He certainly does not. The 30 Longbeards do, though.
Yep.
And on a better save.
Yep. The 30 Longbeards are going to have a more robust attack profile.
Sure.
Because at the top end they're always going to have more attacks.
Yep.
And at the bottom end they're going to be almost equivalent.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think when they originally created the degrading monster profile, in their mind it was.
I liked it.
Sure, and as do I. I still don't. Yeah. I still like it.
Right.
And I think it's okay. It's just, it's like fire. If you use it wrong, it burns you. And the monsters that suck almost universally have profiles where what goes down is the things that actually would make the monster worth using, and they go down way too fast.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Mobility and damage.
right. And I think their concept originally was pretty straightforward. They were like, well, the monster would have like in their crazy early Age of Sigmar brain, back when nobody knew what this game was, they thought, well, a monster is going to naturally be so much more powerful than a unit, right? Because if it doesn't have this table, if it's at max wounds or 1 wound, it would do the same amount of damage because it can always bring its maximum attacks to bear. Whereas a unit who starts at 30 and then goes to 5 is obviously going to make less attacks. And like that's a cute argument, right? But the problem is oftentimes with like your unit of 30 Longbeards or stuff on 25 mil bases, especially, you can get most of those guys in, meaning they generate more attacks. But even when they go down in numbers, you can still get plenty. For big groups like Fire Slayers on 32s, you almost never get the whole unit in, and you don't care. You don't need to be fighting with more than like a dozen of them at a time, and they're still putting out 2 times the attack power of a monster that or 3 times or whatever, right? Even with only part of the unit fighting.
Sure, another piece of this has to do with the. I just totally lost my train of thought. The board control. So, like, a big piece of why they're bad is not only because of how many models are counting towards objectives. It also has to do with how you can zone off areas from teleporting and movement with large amounts of bodies.
Yeah.
You just push people out.
Sure. Yeah, you can daisy chain, but even if you're not daisy chaining, you can cloud, you can simply cover space, you can block out teleportation. Like, it's such a more versatile tool when you have 30 bodies. Forget an objective completely. Assume there's no objective near you.
Right.
It's still vastly better to have that big unit that you can string out, that you can control board space
It's why KO players, despite how much they hate Arco, always take 10 Arco instead of 3 Endrin Riggers for zoning.
Right.
Always. I mean, the one has much better mobility, but that doesn't matter because it's just the raw amount of space that you're covering for pushing things out.
Yeah. And Anthony, stop trying to defend the Dread Saurian. He's bad. And that base is a negative for him. He's like, you can block off a lot with that base. Yes, that 280 by 210 base. Yeah, you can also get him caught in Dead Man's Canyon because he doesn't fly and can't walk over anything. So get out of here with that.
Yeah, because he would move like a total of like 4 inches because he has to move up and then over.
Right, everything.
Yeah, because the base is so large. Yeah. And that's another negative is the actual when you have endless spells on the table.
Sure.
And
a singular big base actually becomes hard to navigate. Higher amounts of terrain, higher amounts of both models and stuff like that get really problematic because you can get your pie plate boss, famously one of the most one of the times.
This is you're gonna tell the story, and that's fine. I want you to tell the story.
Sure.
But I want to preface this by saying this is the time I've never seen Vince as mad.
Mm-hmm.
Like truly red-faced fury.
The angriest I've ever been playing Warhammer.
As the story he's about to tell.
Had to do with I was using a Maw Crusher, which obviously has a mega boss on top, so it's a hero. And I do feel it's a good monster because it is actually worth its weight.
Sure.
It punches hard enough. But it flew in, did its attacks, did whatever, and I flew into the edge of Sylvaneth Wildwood. Okay?
Yep. And you engaged the enemy.
Yes.
You started fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But then
they pulled the casualties. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
So the Maw Crusher on his 160 mil, 6.2 inch pie plate goes in, kills some of the enemy. The enemy then pulls the casualties out of range. Okay?
Yeah. Great move by Sean Clark. Kudos.
Yes, absolutely. He's a great player. By the way, no part of this was me mad at Sean or Jake. This is you and I, right?
They're great. They're
great dudes, and I love playing them. I play them any day and twice on Sunday.
No, it was absolutely the right move. 100%.
I was angry at the nature of the game. Like I was gnashing my teeth at the heavens. Okay.
Yes. Continue.
And so then he pulled the monsters away, and he did a few wounds, to my Maw Crusher, so my speed dropped just enough
Yeah.
to where I could no longer fly out of the woods, nor up, because the terrain piece I was next to
Yep.
was like, no, you can't balance your base on that, so it
Right.
can't hold you. So I couldn't
Yep.
go right, I couldn't go left, I couldn't retreat. There was literally nowhere I could go. I was still in combat,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
Because there was enemies within 3 inches who weren't attacking me.
And he couldn't reach anybody.
Right. And he couldn't reach
anybody.
anybody.
Pile in or reach anybody with his reach.
Correct.
It was beautiful.
So the Mega Boss sat there for 4 fighting turns, 2 battle rounds, just going like, ah! And just being so angry that he couldn't. I had this big piece that I wanted to use. Like when I'm playing Warhammer, all I want to do is play with my big toy. That's all I want to do. I am a child. I just want to play with my big toy. Like, you can kill me, I'll lose the game, I don't care, but let me play with my big toy. And I couldn't play with my big toy. And then finally, what happened is, like, they tried to swing around on us, and they made the mistake of giving me somebody I could charge. Within range, which let me move farther than my move. That was it. Right? So I had to land this long charge out of the woods, and did, and then jailbroke him out of the woods on like a 10-inch charge or an 11-inch charge or something. 11 with the modifier from Iron Jaws. And then got into those Skyfires or whatever it was that were trying to sneak around behind us and just plastered them against a wall. And I was just like, oh God, I've never felt the urge to wah more in my entire life than that moment. Like the release of frustration.
But the point being that, like, big bases are actually a problem.
Yes.
And
that's a long story to support that. Yes.
Yes, but and especially when you had like armies that were like light on wizards. Like I remember ogres were a perfect example of this, where you could actually place the endless shackles around like the like Huskguards, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like the Thunder Tusks, and it would lock them in place because of the bases locking them in place.
Yeah, sure.
Not because of like the effect of the endless spell. It's just simply they couldn't move around where the endless spell bases are, and they couldn't get rid of the endless spell.
Right.
So, like, large bases are a very real problem, especially when you have like IDK putting terrain on the board that you can't move around, or not move easily without traveling another 20 inches.
Right. Yeah.
So
when you're talking about the size of the base, and by the way, a lot of monsters get killed by this base size thing, because there's some legacy monsters on some stupidly big bases for just like
right
no reason.
Yep.
And so the base, the board control, the objective grabbing, the actual just raw offensive capability, right? The wound charts, like in every way, they start off worse than the equivalent anything else unit in the game or hero, right? Just utility, damage, control, mobility. In every way, they're naturally worse.
Right.
Yep. So right away, they just have to be like, we've got to accept this. And I don't think from a design perspective, this has really been internalized. Maybe it has, and they just don't feel like it's the right time to correct it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because this is still very much a challenge, and we've seen plenty of books come out over the past 6, 8, 9, 10 months, whatever you want to say, where this is still a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where these things still persist. Now, I will say we've also seen some corrections of it in recent times. So maybe they're getting the idea and they're just like slowly trying out different stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's when we talk about our winners and our losers in this category, and as you said, there's a lot more losers than winners.
Right.
It gets to the point of like, why don't they all work this way or have this basic stuff?
Right. Yep.
So, okay. The other thing we should say about monsters, about just like monsters, because again, we're talking about big single model units that, like, most of them do have the monster keyword, but sometimes they're made of technology, so they don't have the monster keyword. The other thing I would say about these guys is they're almost exclusively melee. Almost exclusively melee. There are some notable exceptions, but for the most part. And so they're always relying on walking over to you to project your power. Project
Always.
their power.
Always. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They also don't tend to have like as many synergies, they don't have a banner. Like think of how many units have just banners built in that let them
free abilities. Yep.
reroll charges or get +1 to charge.
Yeah.
Or musicians, whatever. Banners for musicians
Yep.
that do that.
Yep.
Right?
Reroll a dice on a charge or auto run 6 or
Right. These are just natural abilities that lots of units have that again monsters don't have.
Right.
It's just not there.
Yep.
So there are so many examples of those kinds of challenges. All right. So Tom, where shall we talk about some ones first that we feel are successful and why they're successful, building
Sure.
off of this, and then talk about some losers and how we'd fix them.
Sure.
Okay. So I've got a list of things I consider successful. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. So I'm going to pick one here that I think is emblematic of what I'll call the utility monster.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And that is the Gothazar Harvester.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
Reasonably pointed. So he's like, about 200 points, as everything in that army basically is, right? And he has an incredible amount of utility. He's damaging enough, right? Like he's not like a super scary melee threat.
He's fine.
He's fine. He's damaging enough. Right. He can fight his way out of a wet paper bag, but he might have some trouble with a dry one. But that's all right,
Sure.
Like he can do the damage. He's not just going to get taken out by some random skirmish unit or something like that. He'll pace them, right?
Right.
And he has an incredible amount of utility to whatever's around him, right? He makes your Mortec amazing by regenning them out.
Yep.
All this kind of stuff. It's, to me, one way you solve the monster problem. So way one you solve the quote-unquote monster problem is by adding utility.
Right.
Making them do something
that other units can't do.
Correct.
And oftentimes it involves buffing.
Yes. Buffing usually the units around them, or enabling the units around them, or being a force multiplier to the units around them in some way. Right?
Yep.
That's and I think the Gothazar is an excellent example of that.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think that is a good example. A bad example of this, of the attempt at this, but the failure, would be the turtle from IDK.
Absolutely. He's the darkest timeline version of the Gothazar Harvester, right? Where, sure, he can fly, so that's cool. But, so thank God, given his big base.
Yep.
But he's not good enough on utility. He's not tough enough, and he's not offensive enough for his much higher points cost, right? And what you've seen is him like slowly inch his way down since he launched, and it's still not enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because just his broadcasting of just cover isn't doing enough.
Right. And so the examples, like other examples that would fall into this category of utility, of they should be bringing utility, or they've attempted to do this and failed, would be, as somebody had pointed out, Ghost Mutton did, the Avatar of Cain.
Yep, sure.
Sits in this place.
By the way, we mean the standalone Avatar of Cain, not the one on the back
the shrine.
of the shrine. Yes,
yep.
Very different models.
Middle of the road, trending bad would be the Skitterstrand Arachnarok, because it brings Deep Strike.
Sure. That's a form of utility, right?
That's a form. Yeah, like that's a mobility utility that the rest of the army doesn't have natively.
Yeah, sure.
And so like when I field those, it's because I want to be able to Deep Strike a unit.
Yep.
That can threaten.
Sure.
Like that's the only reason why I would bring those. And so it's actual utility in the monster and what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I wouldn't also consider that good.
No, even with his repeated points decreases, it's still problematic. Right.
As somebody had noted, also another great example of this would be the Dan Caravan mentioned that Rogue Idol, who gives plus a bonus to cast, just a random bonus to cast to your shamans, which that's pretty good.
Yeah, sure. He's walking arcane. He is also pretty offensive. Like he can do some
Yeah,
damage,
he's
and
punchy.
notably, he is punchy. And notably, he also has the appropriate keywords to synergize. One of the things I mentioned is that a lot of these monsters are often lacking the right keywords to
Yeah,
actually synergize with the best synergies in the army,
right,
right?
right.
But the rogue idol does not.
Honorable mention here of terrible keywords is like the Mortis engine.
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Like such a great utility piece, so much promise. So sad.
Right. Yeah. So to me, this is one of the ways you can go where we have seen success. You might count the hero-less versions of the Huracanum and the Luminarch in this category. Again, I know they're not actually monsters, but to me, they fill the same category. They're around 200 points. They're a single model. They've got like 11 wounds and blah, 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 right?
Yep. Yep.
And I'm talking about the version without the wizard on top, right? That still is something that you can see in armies. Yep. Because they, doing things like broadcasting out a massive bubble of +1 to hit,
Yep. Yep.
And a bonus to cast or whatever, or can be useful.
So what I would say is that so another example of this done well is I think the Ironclad.
Yeah.
Because the Ironclad, like you don't field Ironclads for damage. They have good damage, right?
They do. I mean, like.
But they're expensive. They don't have 480 points of damage. Like they're not.
Yeah.
They don't put out the damage of like a Maw Crusher.
Without buffs, they don't have 480 points of damage. And what synergies or buffs are available is suspect and depends on which army you're talking about them showing up in. So I will agree with you. As a singular War Scroll, they do put out good damage.
Yeah, it's good damage,
but not they're not shooting out a Maw Crush's attacks.
Right.
Yeah.
You add them to your army because you want mobility. Okay. Because you want to be able to deep strike around the table, right? You want to jump around the table.
Oh, sure.
And you want to be able to move troops.
Absolutely.
That's why you run Ironclads.
Because you can pull a big giant garrison of Thunderers inside. You can have like 20 Thunderers inside, and still be jumping around with the Great Engine work, so it's not overloaded.
Right. You can run multiple heroes where you can't run multiple heroes in a frigate unless you don't have a full unit in there.
Right. You can be still, in addition to that, you can be pulling around 7 balloon boys, right? And then dropping down and putting out ranged hurt, right? So, like, to me, I agree. The Ironclad's probably the top end of this. It's probably one of the most expensive things you can get like this.
Yes.
Right? At even now its reduced cost, at 480 points, it is one of the most expensive hero-less monsters.
Yep.
And because of that, it's amazing to me that I think it actually earns it. Right?
What, Ironclad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of what it's doing, I agree with that.
Yes. If it was here's what I'll say. If it was just a boat, that's all it was. Right? If it was like a steam tank.
Yep.
You can't garrison people and the steam tank doesn't pull anybody else with it, right? It's just
right.
That's all it is.
Right.
If it was just that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It would no way it'd be worth its points.
No, you'd have to knock 100 points off of it.
Sure, absolutely, at least. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. So, to me, what you see here is that's version 1, right? When monsters can bring a large amount of utility.
Yes.
That's where they. Yeah, and there's a nice spectrum here.
Yes, right? we've talked about the like really good to the thanks for trying.
Sure. Okay. So the other thing that a monster could and should theoretically do, right, is be a bully, right?
Right.
It would seem to make sense that the other purpose of a big monster
is punch you in the face.
Is to punch people in the face real hard, to be scary, right? To do damage in some way.
Can I open with what I think a good example of this is?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I think that the Terrorgeist, the unmounted Royal Terrorgeist, fits in this category.
Sure.
And particularly, I'm talking about in Gristlecore, where this is a bully that has synergy within the army and that is counting as battle line.
Mm-hmm.
And so by adding it, it's doing it. It's serving a function. It's high mobility, high punch. That bite can be really scary, but it's not the end of the world scary, right?
Yeah, sure. It's not the Ghoul King on the Terrorgeist where it
right.
doesn't.
Yeah, it's not that with the mount traits and all that. But the guy can put out some damage,
Mm-hmm.
right? He can do some work if you need him to. And he gets synergy.
Clocks in around 300 points, right?
Yeah.
Feels about right for what he puts
right.
out.
A nice mobility on it. Yeah. I think he is a good punch monster for what he does. I could maybe take him for a little bit cheaper. But yeah, he would be in that category for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the regular Terrorgeist is a pretty successful version. I didn't run the average damage on him. I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah.
By the way, if you ever want to calc out what the average damage is for a monster, Druchii.net. If you just search for that, just search up Druchii AoS calculator. You'll find it's a really fantastic tool for quickly calculating out the percentage spread of damage. At any rate, I did run that for some of these monsters beforehand. My other example of success, to build on what you just said, in a smaller version of that, is the Bastillodon.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Very tough, right? Starting at the 1+, basically invulnerable save, right?
Yep.
Has to get mortal wounded to get his shell cracked because of an oddity of math that got fixed in like 5 minutes in 40K, but it's been around for 4 months or 5 months in AoS, which is, I guess that's just the way the world works.
Yep.
But also has a pretty good shot. Like his laser beam is nothing to turn up your nose at.
There's no other real long range in Seraphon. Long range, like shooting damage.
Yeah, like you can. There's range magic damage.
Like
not shooting.
Yeah, like salamanders have a 12-inch shot, right?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
But like the Bastillodon laser beams are their only option, so it's bringing actual real damage, utility damage,
and has a sub faction that can make it fire twice.
Right.
Which is actually then turns that actually into a really good tool that makes it do some significant damage.
Yep.
And so to me, it's again that's a cheaper version of it. It's not 300 points. He's in the low 200s. Yep. And the Bastillodon, I think, he's filling a great role in the army. I think you'll see him a little more now that Sally's have went up. If they would have fixed Croak as well, which they didn't, and I will never not say this in a show where I get a chance to mention it, not moving the points up on Croak was a darn near war crime. Okay, so like we might need to call the Hague.
The Warp Seers over there laughing.
Really. Every hero that's more than 320 points need to look themselves in the mirror and say, how much worse than you were, Croak, for how many more points? That's the answer, right?
True. Poor Alariel.
You get 2 Croaks for her. At any rate, I think the Bastille is like, if it wasn't so lopsided to where, Croak and the Sallies was such an overwhelmingly right choice for the first couple months of that book, I think Bastillodon is and will over time continue to get, more expensive. And shut up, Anthony. I don't want to hear your explanations of stacking other stuff on top being more expensive. I have no patience for that argument. It is wrong.
Yeah. You just said, and ironclads are 1,000 points.
Right, sure. Everything has synergy. Stop it. Okay. So anyway, at any rate, I think the Bastillodon's a good example of that, right? Where you've got offensive power. Right. I think this is the part where they've checked their swing. There's so many more failures here.
Yeah.
Of monsters that are clearly meant to be bullies, right? They're not meant to be utility pieces. They're not meant to be buffing things. They're meant to be big, scary, dangerous to the enemy monsters that go rampaging. They're meant to be, when you see the Total War cutscenes that come up on that you see in their trailers and stuff, where a monster comes in and just starts wrecking stuff.
I remember what the Ragnarok looked like in that.
Yeah, sure. Monsters in Total War look super cool in those, those cutscenes. That is not how they play.
It's true. So we've talked about a couple good ones that have been successful. One of the middle of the road ones that I like I'm staying positive, that
Yeah,
I
sure.
like in this space is I really like the Colossal Squig.
Sure.
Um,
I definitely would place him firmly in the not bad, but not
right.
as good as he could be category.
Right. Like he could be more punchy. Like all those little stomps could all just be flat 2 damage. That'd be great.
Yes. Let me
Um,
hold on. I want to
yeah,
put a pin on what you just said there real quick. I'm going to drill in on this. I want to drill in on this real fast.
yeah,
Okay.
yep. Do it.
Number one thing that should be changed on all monsters. Monsters. Monsters should never have a 1 damage attack. Period.
Ever.
Ever. Get rid of one. I mean, unless it's like. Okay.
Unless it's the goblin hanging on the back of the Arachnarok.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
You're allowed to be 1 damage. But
Right.
here's the deal. If it's the monster, 1 damage should just be stricken from every single war scroll.
Absolutely. It is insulting that any monster at all has a 1 damage attack. And by the way, the number of monsters that have 1 damage attacks is way too high. The same damage that a monster does should not be equivalent to with one of their like swings or melee attacks. Should not be the equivalent of yes, to a common to a human to a tired malnourished human dude with a spear, right?
With a wooden stick, not even
with a sharpened wooden stick. Yes.
Yes.
To a lowly grot with a wooden stick. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I could see some examples, like if it was an outrageously high number of attacks, like somebody mentioned Dryka. Sure,
Yeah.
like Dryka making 20 attacks that are 1 damage each.
Right, because those are bees. Those are not Dryka.
It's not Dryka making the attacks, it's bees. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So 1 damage attacks on monsters drive me up a wall and back down the other side. Like it's that is instant verisimilitude breaking to me right there.
Yeah. Yep.
So okay.
And so
please
like
continue.
the Colossal Squig, if it was 2 damage, like little stompy attacks, I'm in.
Yeah.
Then he would be a wonderful bully with tons of damage output. But you know, a lot closer to the War Mammoth. But that's not what he is.
Yeah, I don't love seeing things like that where you have profiles on monsters that you're like, well, here's my good profile that can do something, roll that, and then it's like it does whatever it does. And you get to the next profile and you're like, now I get to roll the 3 profiles that don't matter, or whatever.
Right.
It's just so insulting. Like, rolling a monster should always feel like you're doing something.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They shouldn't have these, like, weeder attacks. If they do, just get rid of them. Strike them off the profile and make the other ones good. It's deleterious to even have it occur. It's mentally defeating when you're just like, okay, here's my 8 4s and 3s, no rend, 1 damage attacks.
Can I give my pet peeve here?
Yeah, sure.
In any attack sequence, there should never be more than 3 profiles.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting demarcation line. There are certainly things that break that. In your favorite, the KO, often sometimes they really love doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen like the Thunderer? No, I just it's like I know my armies really well.
Yeah, sure.
But I have to run off KO cards because I have units with like 4 different profiles.
Yeah, sure. I would say that where possible, I like that as a guideline. I don't know if I institute that as a rule, but I think that's a strong
fine.
guideline.
But like, I can't stand all the like multitude of profile attacks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I get it.
Like, and especially when they're like, this is my goblin who hits on a 4+4+. 4 attacks, no rend, 1 damage. versus the other goblins hanging on, which are 5+4+, no rend, 1 damage.
Sure. Yeah, I get it. So my yes, monsters should in general should be always having rend and always doing multi damage, right? That's a good rule of thumb to be living by.
Yes.
Because in general, you shouldn't be having this giant monster hitting like a wet noodle. It's so insulting to me when I get the same damage when an attack profile on a monster is the equivalent of like 4 goblins. That's what we're talking about often, right? Or whatever.
Right.
Pick 4
Right.
clan rats, 4 whatever.
Right.
Pick your bad cheap infantry, blood reavers, whatever you like. Okay, and
That will do on average a third of a point of damage.
yeah, exactly. That when you calc it out, you're lucky if you actually get 1 damage being the actual thing that line is adding. You're lucky if it actually has 1 real damage being the modal outcome. Yeah, exactly. Well, somebody said, why 3? Ease of comprehension. Yeah, I think just in general, people remember 3. Like, you can remember a set of 3 things better than you can remember larger sets. Like, human beings are real good at remembering sort of 3 things. It's just kind of a thing. And so I do think it's a good guideline to design to, just as a principle. It doesn't mean you could never break it. Again, there are certain monsters where, if you're talking about, like, Archeon the Everchosen, maybe there's a reason to have more than that. Or, some very special big thing.
Sure.
But sure. And so, yeah, I'm with that. In the medium category, I think you're right. I think the Colossal Squig is in the medium territory. Let's talk about some losers here, can we?
Sounds great.
Oh boy, are there losers. Tom, this is where we're gonna bring up some visible examples. I just don't want to talk through these.
It's gonna be painful. Go ahead.
It is, but here we go. Boom. Number 1. Let's get it. So everybody should be seeing the Mutalith Vortex Beast. All this stuff, by the way, is free. I'm sharing open source stuff, by the way. This is all stuff I downloaded completely free from the GW website. You can go get these scrolls too. Scrolls are, free to download, just so nobody's worried that I'm like sharing something inappropriate. The Mutalith Vortex Beast, and we could do the same thing for the Slaughter Brute, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? 1, this guy's a bad utility monster. Because his aura of mutation, which is supposed to be the reason you take him, right? That's the reason you put him on the table.
I remember you were so excited to roll on that.
I am, and I always am when I roll this guy, because I want it to be fun, because he can do a d6 mortal wounds. It's so neat, right? That's so neat.
He doesn't.
But he doesn't. Most of the time, like, you'll roll him, and what you get is like, oh, okay, you get -1 to run rolls for the rest of the battle.
Now you have to track that. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Right? Like, this is one of the coolest models. I love the Vortex Beast. I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
And 1, he does, like, no damage. Let's just start there. So, that giant maw, by the way, that he's making, like, 3d6 attacks with, again, a 1 damage, no rend attack. So you read that and you're like, oh, 3d6 attacks. Whoa, that's a lot of attacks on something, right? Well, first of all, on average, that's obviously 9.5 attacks. So let's just run this calculation real quick. Let's go up. Let's round it up and say 10.
Sure.
Okay. 10 attacks on 4s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. Sure. Okay. 10 on 4s. That means half hit. Okay. 5 hit.
Yep.
4s to wound, 2.5 wound. Let's go. Let's round up again. We'll always be more favorable. So 3 wound against a 4-up save. So 1.5, 2 damage. In the best case scenario, he gets 2 damage through with that attack. Well, hooty hoo. By the way, that is not the modal outcome because of all that rounding up I did, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And his claws are just a joke. Like, this guy's a joke. What is the purpose of this monster?
Yeah.
And again, it's just an absolute. It's an absolute crime because he's super cool, and this dude's 170 points. 170 points.
I would rather have 5 Cold One Riders. Or whatever they're called, the Drake Spawn Knights.
Oh, sure. Yeah, at 130? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, put this guy, let's talk in the same army, okay?
Sure.
Let's put this guy against a medium choice.
Yeah.
Chaos Knights. 10 points cheaper. 15 wounds. More wounds. Same save. Better, better stats down the line, right? Resistant to mortal wounds on a 5-up.
Yep.
Right? Longer move, or like longer range. They both have a 10-inch move, but they're more mobile because of various things that allow them to run and charge and stuff like that, right? Definitely hit unbelievably harder. Way more synergies with the rest of the army.
Yeah.
Right? Just like it's not even close. It's not even close.
Oof. Yeah.
Like, in what universe would you look at this guy and then look at 5 Chaos Knights and go, I'm going to take this guy? And that's just... I want to take this guy. I have taken this guy. I've made the wrong choice because I love him so much. And it hurts me. Why isn't this guy good? Okay.
Because he's bad.
Because he is bad. War Hydra. Good night. What is going on here? I don't even know where to go with this scroll. Okay? So again, 12 wounds on a 4-up save. He has a, like, who cares ranged attack.
You don't like his pyro breath?
It's fine. He has, like, a very, very weak ability to heal. Okay?
Sure.
Like, slaying the Hydra was one of the 12 great tasks of Hercules, right? Hercules would kill this guy in between sips of his cup of coffee. Okay, this wouldn't be one of the 12 great tasks. This would be something on his honey-do list for the afternoon, right?
Sure. Checks out.
His actual melee attacks are a joke. He's slow. He doesn't fly. 8-inch move, right?
Yeah.
Like,
poor guy.
This guy has multiple attacks that are on basically that garbage profile I talked about and do 1 damage.
Oof.
Right?
Oof.
And even his, like, primary attack is 6 attacks on 4s and 3s at neg1 for D3 damage.
And they updated him this year.
Yeah, this guy came out within, the last 8 months or whatever, whenever Cities came out.
Yeah. Oh.
This is nonsensical.
Poor
yes,
guy.
I agree. Autumn Lotus said Gotrek is essentially Hercules, which I agree with. That's a great comparison. Gotrek wouldn't need to finish half of his attack profile to absolutely pace this guy against the wall.
Nope. It's true.
Okay. And the War Hydra is, again, 170 points. Now, sure, he can be battle line in, in Anvil Guard. Why? Like, okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
That is literally the only potential possible saving grace of this thing. I didn't even bring up the Charybdis because it wasn't even worth discussing.
No.
That's even worse, if that's possible to have happen. Let's talk about mini monsters, man.
Sure. Poor mini monsters.
Poor mini monsters. The Cockatrice. One of my favorite old little weird monster scrolls.
Yep.
8 wounds. He is still a monster. He actually has the monster keyword.
Yep.
6-up save. He does fly for 12 inches. His melee attacks are completely irrelevant. They do nothing.
Yep.
They do an average of 2 damage. So that's cool. And the reason you take this guy is he's a 100-point non-hero blood boil.
Yep.
Right? That's what he is.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
He is a non-synergizing blood boil.
Yeah.
Again, cockatrices are supposed to be really scary. They're supposed to turn people to stone. They're supposed to be a very frightening monster. This is such a cool sculpt. Like, even though he's Finecast, he actually holds up. I've put together a couple of these dudes in Finecast. I actually don't think they came out okay because they're mostly rough textures. So this kind of thing is actually okay with Finecast. Here's my question for you, Tom. Can you ever fix one of these mini monsters? Right? Because he's not that big.
They have to change the war scroll. That's the only.
This guy's already like 100 points. He's already super cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And again, there's no universe where 10 of anything is not at 100 points or whatever is not better than this guy.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
So, what is my point is, from a meta perspective, can you ever have a mini monster like this at this kind of a low points value that's actually going to carry his weight just because of all the negatives working against them? You see what I mean? You understand what I'm saying, Tom?
Yeah.
Because you can't... Does a monster effectively need to be somewhere up in the, 200s to 300 point range and hit really hard to actually be worth taking as a monster? And feel like a monster. Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if there aren't that many of these weird oddities in the game.
Yep.
These kind of mini monsters, but I just wonder if they're even doable. I think maybe there's a version of it, right?
Yeah.
Like if his gaze hit automatically or
Hmm.
something, like if he could just do that, if he could just make something suffer d6 mortal wounds,
Yep.
if he was maybe even faster, like if he had a 16-inch fly or something, like if he was exorbitantly fast and had
Yep.
that mortal wound gaze, then maybe he'd be like a good little sort of suicide piece, right?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
If the ranged attack was farther, more than like 10 inches, if it was
Yep.
maybe 16. So if he was fast or it was farther or both,
Yep.
right? Then, because if anything even looks at this guy funny, he's dead. I mean, he's 8 wounds on a 6-up save. Like he's just going to evaporate,
Yep. Yep.
right? So I have to wonder if there's, like the answer here with all of these is like you got to turn it up, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, I want to jump to some other scrolls here.
Yeah. Please do.
Let's talk about this bad boy right here. The scroll we all want to be good. The Gorgon.
Sure.
Sweet sculpt, right? This guy's an awesome sculpt. Still holds up. Many, many years old. Still
Yep.
holds up. Okay. 5-up save. 14 wounds, 8-inch move. I hate seeing an 8-inch move on monsters. I hate that. I hate it. I hate a guy this big and this tall. Like, this thing is the size of a walking building, right? It's the size of a light mech.
Yep.
And it's walking around at the same speed as any regular ogre on foot. Right?
Yep.
That's its speed. It's slower than any dude on a horse. Any just rando on a horse. Right?
Yep.
That's just insulting. Okay?
Pretty bad.
The Gorgon does an average of 6 damage with his attacks. 6. Calced it out before the show.
Oh, poor guy.
6. That's your most common outcome. By the way, this guy's a really interesting damage spread because of his maw. Because the maw is so unreliable, right? Being one attack on a 4-up, that he has this weird spiky damage profile based on whether or not it hits, right?
Yep.
But at any rate, this guy is terrible. Straight terrible. Like, it looks like the butcher has arrived to the battlefield, and like this guy at what is he at? 160 right now? Is that right? That sounds right. Maybe he went down a little bit. Is that still true? I didn't double check to see if he went down. I didn't remember. I'll be openly and honest that I didn't double check all of these with a new book. I was relying on the app, and then very quick before the show I remembered, oh yeah, that's right, the app's not updated yet. Gorgon is, yes, 160. There we go. Okay, that's right. Give me a break. Like, again, compared to, again, choices in this army, would you ever not take 10 Bestigor over this guy? No, of course not. Of course 10 Bestigor are better than this guy. It's not even close.
Right.
Like, that's an insane comparison. Right? So let's perform some surgery here, Tom. Let's fix the Gorgon specifically, okay?
Okay.
So right now, as I said, he's 14 wounds with an 8-inch move, a 5-up save. A 5-up save.
Wow.
He's got his little blades that he makes. Either he goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Both of his... So this is what I was talking about with putting the attack profile. If you look at stuff like the Ironclad, when it gets damaged, the things, its like offensive power basically doesn't go down very much. Right? It retains its shooting capability. What goes away is some of its utility. Right? Its ability to fly high, lift off, stuff like that. But they've gotten really a lot better with newer monster profiles at not hitting literally the only thing that needs to make it good. This was always the Chimera problem, right? If, like, the Chimera is at full health, he's actually okay. Okay. The second he took, like, 3 wounds, he was completely worthless. You might as well just move him off the board because he does not hurt anything. Right. And the fact that, like, both of these things are hitting relevant profiles and hitting them fast. Like, his attacks drop like a rock. His move drops like a rock. His maw, that's actually okay, I guess. 2, 3, 4, whatever, that's fine. That's actually kind of slow to increase. That profile hit, I don't mind. Okay. That actually feels more right. It feels like what the blade should be doing is like 5, 5, 4, 4, 4. Right? That should be what the blades look like, or something like that. Okay. What's your fix for this guy, Tom? We need to make this guy into the offensive powerhouse that the beasts have always deserved. What does this guy need to look like? What's he doing? Why are you changing this?
I don't know. It's a great question. I have no idea.
Okay.
More damage.
Sure. Let me pitch an idea at you, right? By the way, I'll flip down to the second part of the scroll just so we can remember that if he has an unmodified wound roll of a 6, right, he also inflicts D3 mortal wounds, and he does have his, like, each time his model attacks, you can choose to eat a dude, right? He can go gulpy on a specific model. So that's cool, which is nice. But at any rate, those are nice little, sprinkles on top of the cake ability here. All right, let me pitch you something, Tom. You ready?
Okay, hit me.
Okay, here we go. Number 1, the Gorgon. We're gonna just move him up to a little 4+ save. I'm not going crazy. Just a 4+. Okay.
Sure.
Just something that represents the fact that he's a massive wall of muscle and meat. Okay. How about we just start there? Okay. Next up, we're going to make his move 12 inches, and the most it ever degrades to is 8. Okay? So it goes 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, which is exactly 5 spots, right? With 5. These wound tables have 5 spaces. Okay? Next up, with his butchering blades, all right, that just sort of I have a lot of these attacks. All right? We're going to turn that up to 10 attack space.
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Yep.
And they're going to go, the chart is going to go 10, 10, 9, 8, 7.
Sure.
Okay. The profile, other than that, can actually remain the same. 3, 3, neg 1, 3 damage. Okay. That's the rend 1 attack.
Sure.
The huge maw. Okay.
Needs to actually be a huge maw.
This game classically overvalues what D6 damage means, right?
Sure.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to up his profile to 2 attacks with that. Okay. And he's going to be to hit on a 2, and then he's going to keep his wound chart. Unwounded, he's going to go 2, 2. Neg 2 rend. D6 damage.
I agree with that. Okay. Can I hit a peccadillo that this is the first time that we've touched on this?
Yeah, man.
Monsters should never, ever have a base 4+ to hit.
Yeah, sure.
By their very definition, a monster is more elite. Okay, but whether it's their bulk, their size, their training, their
reach, their ability to sweep aside a wall of guys. I was watching some Berserk before this, and I watched Guts fight that massive demon monster whose name I can't remember in the basement. And there's like 30 spear dudes that charge that guy. That charges big demon. He just goes like this and moves his hand, and it's just like whoosh. Now there's no more dudes.
They're not 4+ to hit. Because the problem is that it's not just the 4+. It's the fact that in the world that we play in, the real world, there are always negatives floating. And when they move from like a 4 to a 5, you can just chuck the profile out the window. And this is why, by the way, you don't see Magma Dross on the table at all. Because they're 4+ to hit down the line.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. They're heroes and they don't do anything. Hence why they're not on the table.
Although I will say some people do play them some. They don't get 0 play. Like I understand what you're saying. They don't show up in the most competitive list, which I agree with.
I mean, I would love to pull the data from a large event and see how many Magma Dross were at the event. Let me say it that way.
Yeah, sure. You'd find some. You would, because I've seen them in lists. But again, you're right that they're not they are not as common of a choice compared to your other options in the army, right?
Right.
Okay. So the Maw is now 2 attacks on 2s base 2, still have the same degrading profile. I love that. That profile can stay. That's actually the only thing on
Sure.
this table I don't need to
Sure.
change. Neg 2 rends. This is like the 2 row, right? If at unwounded, it's just 2s almost down the line. So 2, 2, 2, neg 2, d6. Now,
Yeah.
here's where we're going next. Ready? We're gonna
Yep.
borrow from the Dawn. We're gonna borrow a trick from the Dawn Riders. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
When resolving attacks with the huge slavering maw. Okay.
Yep.
If the attack is successful against when the attacks are made against models that have only 1 wound,
1 wound. Yeah.
the damage is 6, not d6.
Yep.
Because he
Yep.
just eats a bunch of dudes. Because he
Yeah.
has a huge slavering maw, and he just bends down and goes up, and like eats up 6 dudes. Like
Yep. Yep.
chomp, but chomp, but chewy chomp chomp. Okay.
Agree completely.
All right, and that's how. There we go. So he's still very glass cannony, right? Because he's still just a guy on a 4-up save, and
Right.
that's fine. I don't need all these guys. Don't need to get super defensive,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Like the right answer isn't always just make them super defensive. That's kind of the wrong way to go.
Sure. Sure.
Sometimes that could be the answer,
Right. Right.
but it should be. But there should be some that are just big giant monsters, and the answer is everybody in the enemy army has to go bring that thing down, and they have to like spend
Right.
effort. They would have to pay attention to this thing now, right? Because
Right.
his damage profile would jump way up, right?
Yep.
Now the question becomes, how much would I point this guy? Because that's a question I've seen some people ask in the
Yep.
comments. So currently he's at 160 for that profile I just said. Okay, in this army, in Beasts of Chaos. All right.
Yep.
I would put him at like 200 points.
Yeah, I was gonna say 220.
Yeah, sure.
But
200,
yeah,
220.
2
Again,
to 220. Yep.
Because he has, like, people are going to go, but wait, that's so much damage on that profile. And then you're thinking just like the original designers did. Remember, all of the meta weaknesses this guy has. 1 model, not 10, poor board control, still poor movement. Even a 12-inch walking speed is still just walking.
Let's compare his damage to 20 best of war.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's what you're talking about. And you're saying he still has too much damage? Yeah.
So, yeah, somewhere like, yeah, sure, 200, 220, somewhere in that range. And by the way, Beast of Chaos would get this dude on the cheap because that's what Beast does.
Right. It eats things. It's low defense, high offense.
Right. It is an army of like things that run in, hit, and explode. Right.
Yep.
And it is mainly a melee focused swarm the board army.
Yep.
How much things cost is reflective of like the army that they find themselves in. And the fact is, if you pointed him higher, even on a damage profile like that, he's still just not going to be worth it.
Right.
Because he becomes too many points on, where you should just be choosing bodies.
Right.
Because how beasts have to win right now is body swarming.
Right. And like, so you need to have the option of going higher damage.
Yeah.
And lower bodies. And the problem is they don't do that.
Absolutely. And what Curran just said in the comments is I completely agree with. If the Gorgon had that attack profile, people would target it because it would be scary. I agree.
That's what it's supposed to be doing as a bully.
Right.
It should be drawing attacks.
Exactly.
Right now, no one is throwing attacks at this thing. They are going to let the mage D3 like staff attack this guy.
Sure. Right.
Because he's not scaring anyone with his 5+ save and 14 wounds.
Yeah, exactly. You'll just errantly kill this guy with just like whatever you happen to have that gets near him.
Right.
It's not even worth changing your battle plan around.
Right.
Yeah. You do not have to play around this guy or notice him in any way. Yeah. Yeah. So, but if you turn him up to that profile, right, his average damage would shoot up to about 18. Okay.
Right.
Depending.
Now you have my attention.
Yeah, and now that's actually something that's pretty scary. Right? Again, there are limitations to that. It depends on exactly what it would be different if he was wounded on profile and yada 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 yada. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay. So, to me that's okay. It's okay to have somebody really tilted toward offense, but that has this big weakness. It's just 14 wounds on a 4-up. That's it.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yep.
Right? And like, okay,
a 5-up. He's a 14 wounds on a 5-up.
No, I'm saying in my version of him, he'd be 14 wounds
yeah.
on a 4-up, right? And that'd be fine. That's a yes. He's not hard to bring down. I agree. That's why he's pointed rather cheaply. If he was like 14 wounds on a 3-up with a 5-up after save, I'd be
now he's in the 300s.
Yeah, I'd be jacking those points way up, right?
Yeah.
But he's not, because it doesn't fit the army. The army's just like raw, crazy meat charging forward from the woods at you, right?
Right.
Okay. Next scroll. Oh, that's right. One of my favorites, and yours. It's the Hell Pit Abomination.
Yeah.
I truly hate this model. I think it's like just god awful, but I love the Hell Pit as a concept. I just have never liked the model.
Yep.
So let's talk about the Hell Pit. Move 2d6 inches. I want to talk about a really interesting thing I've noticed.
Ugh.
With move and randomness, and this goes back to your Mangler Squigs and those kinds of talks earlier.
Yep.
12 wounds on a 5-up. Okay.
Yep.
He's got these different attacks. So he's got his gnashing teeth, 6 attacks, 3s, neg 3 rend if he's unwounded, which is fantastic. 2 damage each. 6 attacks with his fists on 3s, neg 1, 3 damage, and then he has his little avalanche of flesh attack where he gets to basically roll a die for every model in a single unit within 3 inches of him. You can reroll it if you made a charge move, and they suffer 1 mortal wound for each roll that's equal to or greater than the avalanche of flesh value, which again, if you're unwounded, is a 2-up, right? So that's cool.
Sure.
He regenerates, which is cool. He can ignore spells on a 4-up, right? He has this thing that who cares about the neg 1 to bravery? Nobody cares. And he has a 33% chance to come back to life with d6 wounds if he's killed, which doesn't matter much at all, because the most that can push him to is this level of the profile, which is still not very impressive because he has to actually be up here to actually be good. But it can keep him around, which is kind of neat, right? Yeah. All right. Yep. This guy is 220 points now post the change, and he did back down to where he should have been.
Sure.
And he does an average of 8 to 12 damage when he hits, not counting the avalanche of flesh, right? Because that's an extremely variable number. So 8 to 12 plus avalanche is his damage number. Pretty decent. Okay. Why is this guy bad, Tom?
Because he's going to get picked up and removed at the slightest, anybody looking at him.
Yeah, because he's on a 5-up.
He's on a 5-up with 12 wounds, and I don't care if he hypothetically comes back sometimes. He's not coming back. That's not going to matter when I throw just a little bit of damage this way and make you pick him up.
Sure. And of course we can't forget that as a fighting beast, if you have a master molder, he could start with some extra, with a D3 extra wounds or 2 extra wounds or whatever, depending on how you do it. I get it. Okay.
Sure.
This guy's in my mind, the best of the bad, but still bad. Okay. Yeah. And that's because I would place this firmly on, yes, I agree with you, the poor defense to wound ratio, right?
Right.
And that random move. So I watched a random move of 2d6 is so bad. You don't think about how bad that actually is.
It's so bad.
Mm-hmm. On a big monster. It's the worst. I watched the player who was piloting the Mangler Squig, okay?
Yeah.
Roll his 2d6 random move or whatever, and 3 turns in a row he got a 5 or less. One turn he rolled a 3. And I was like,
so I get to pile in with him this turn
for my movement. Yeah. And he's started back in the corner.
For my movement.
Just going nowhere. And I was just laughing at that thing.
Yeah, but here's the flip side of that. With that Mangler, by the way, he can solve that problem.
Sure. He could pick him up and throw him across the board. With
Gloomspite. No, but Gloomspite actually has they can run their Loon Boss on Gigantic Swig and give him +3 to move. Sure. They can run things that give him rerollable dice on a normal.
No, absolutely. He could be under the Bad Moon, which actually he was because he had Scrag Rot, and he can run and charge. Yes.
But that's the point. Like, so let me point this out. This abomination doesn't have those options.
No, he does not.
Those aren't on the table.
No. The best he
He's
can
hard
do is
rolling
like
2d6.
Yeah, the best he can do is like get whipped, and that only works once,
Right.
and it's not adding that much. Yes, correct.
Right.
Yep, and the those dice to me, I think we are way undervaluing how much of a crazy negative that random move is. It's so bad, right?
Yeah.
When you compare to other big monsters that more or less, like most big monsters, I would say move probably like 10 inches, 12 inches. That's, I feel like, a fair average. If you just took kind of all the monsters in the game.
Maybe. I think they're probably closer to 8 to 10.
Okay.
Honestly.
But I don't know. Yeah.
But I would like, again, I'm throwing an estimate out. I'm thinking about all the foot monsters, like all of the bad giants and all of those guys.
Sure. It's fair. At the same time, there's a lot of big like flying monsters that do whatever.
Sure.
So, but yes,
sure,
doesn't fly. Hops his dumbass across the board. 2d6 inches, right? Just slowly going on a 5-up save. This guy, I want to love this guy. This is like one of the sweetest concepts in Skaven, right? We all agree.
Yep.
This is like amazing. A giant thing of stitched together, just parts that a master molder has worked into this grotesque abomination. That is the coolest thing, right?
Yep.
And the fact that it's just not going to work. So, okay, how do we fix this guy? Let's do some additional molder surgery. Okay?
Yep.
How do we fix this guy?
Do you know how I would fix him?
I'm ready, man. Tell me.
I would, for his movement, just add +8.
Oh, just 2d6 plus 8?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would increase his wounds to 20.
Just make him like literally keep him on a 5-up save, but just make him a giant pile of meat.
Massive meat. Yes. Yep. Leave the damage. He's scary. He has threat. He can do some work with his like waves of flesh or whatever, but then actually make those hit points like meaty.
What you're gonna do with all that meat? Yes, indeed. Okay, so I love the move idea. I love 2d6 plus 8. This thing should be fun. It reminds me of like the horror, like of various monsters in video games or whatever. They're just like giant piles of flesh.
Yep.
They come ripping after you, and their like hands are reaching out and shooting out over all the walls
and dragging it,
pulling them forward.
Fast.
Yeah.
And so like this thing should be like fast-ish.
Yeah. Yes. As Autumn Lotus was said, a great unclean one is usually faster than this. Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts. 20 wounds, I think, is too many. Let me pitch an alternate idea at you.
Okay.
Only because, like, you look at Archeon at 20 wounds, and you're like, 20 wounds, that's what 20 wounds represents.
Well,
this guy's big enough.
So here's the alternative. You give him, like, a feel no pain.
Okay. Let me pitch it. Not bad. Let me give you I think this guy has a different concept behind him. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to a feel no pain. Maybe that could be in there.
I'm thinking about, like, the unrelenting monstrosity of like Frankenstein's monster that won't relent.
Yep, I gotcha. I'm with that too.
So that's the design space my head is in. Hence why I'm giving him either just a bucket load of wounds or giving him some damage prevention. Okay, so go with your pitch.
I like some of it. I'm going to build on it. Here we go. Let me yes and you here. Okay, to a point.
Okay.
So let's take this guy to 16 wounds. Okay. I still feel like that's okay. 16 feels like you could put that on a 120 chariot base with the size of that model and not feel like you're in Crazy Town. Okay, because he is just a giant pile of meat.
Yep.
I'd even accept 14, somewhere in that range. That's fine. 14 or 16. Okay.
Yep.
We'll keep him at the 5-up save because it's easy to wound him. He's just a big pile of skin and stitched together. All right.
Yep.
However, at the end of the battle shock phase, okay, he heals a d6 wounds. Okay? Not a D3, in the hero phase or whatever. None of this
Sure,
sort of nonsense
sure.
that you see on other monsters, right? Because right now
Yeah.
he has in your hero phase you can heal up to D3 wounds.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that is slow, ridiculous, inefficient healing. Okay, so we
Yes.
move him up
Yeah.
to a D6 in not just in your in at
Every
the
battle
end of
shock
battle
phase.
shock phase. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's happening every turn. After combat, he shoots back up a D6.
Yep. I mean, it's going to do the same thing of what I'm proposing. So sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And then final change. Okay, because I actually think offensively, this guy's about in the right place.
Right. I agree with that. Yep. That's
Yeah.
why I didn't touch his offense at all.
Yeah. The final thing I want to change is this table. Okay, right here. We're gonna get rid of dead. This result right here. Hey, I know. Let's just get rid of the unfun thing that is a real feel bad to roll. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I got my cool toy. How about we just get rid of that? And instead, this becomes a 50-50 table where 1, 2, 3, the rats emerge. So he does a bunch of mortal wounds around him when he dies. That's cool.
Yep.
I dig that. Still, you get something out of him dying, right?
Yep.
And then 4 through 6, it's alive, and he comes back with 2d6 wounds.
Sure. Yep.
There we go.
Yep. And then he'll heal another D6 in the battle shock phase.
Exactly.
Which would mean that he could shoot back up to full with good rolling.
Yep, absolutely. And now you've got like this abomination that won't stay down, right? And again, as just like now, right? This only triggers the first time it's slain. That would still be the case. I'm no issue with that. The second you put him down, he gets back up. You put him down again, it stays down, right? Like super fine. Okay. Now I feel like honestly, and here's the funny thing. Maybe this guy had put him up to 240 with that kind of a profile.
No, I think I'd keep it.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I'm saying. Like he's either at 220, maybe 240. I only say maybe up because Skaven do have a wide. They're a fight in every phase army.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you should, if you're a fight in every phase army, if you're cities, if you're Skaven, if you're Seraphon, you should be paying retail for everything. Okay.
Yeah. Like, and honestly, like this guy, he should be a bully, and bullies need to be in the two, like true bullies that are not, that have no other function but to bully, which is what this guy is. They should be in the 2 to 240 range.
Sure. 2+ Tough said also it'd be cool if you could take these guys as a unit of 3 of these dudes. Oh, I think that'd be sweet. I'd be all about that. Or even 2. I'd say 2. Unit of 2. Sure. Like we have units that are like that.
Sure.
They're that expensive. Why not?
I mean, I don't like it, but sure. It's fine.
It's okay. 2 in a unit. 2. So you get one for 220 or 2 for 440 or 1 for 240 and 2 for 480, depending on where we feel like they land.
Sure.
But yeah, now you've got something that actually lives up to the Hell Pit Abomination. Hits plenty hard. Again, I don't think the offense is wrong. I think it hits about right. Like I said, it's doing about 8 to 12 damage against a 4-up save plus the Avalanche of Flesh and all mortal wounds. That's pretty good.
Yep. Yeah. I agree with that.
And so, it's going to clock in depending on what it's fighting. If it's getting into a bunch of infantry, which is what it wants to fight, it's going to get in there and do 15, 16, 17 wounds. Some, significant portion of that being mortals. That's great.
Yeah.
Right? That's
going to do its job.
Yeah. And now he can actually get there because we fixed the move, and he can survive the errant fire. Again, with these bullies, the key is you got to find a way to make it interesting for them to both get there and participate.
Right, and it doesn't need to always be the same thing. Like you can do random movement, and so what that 8 plus 2d6 means is that he's going to move about 12 to 13, so he's a little bit faster than a lot of standard monsters, in your estimate of 12. Sometimes he's going to be, on average or slower. Sometimes he's going to shoot across the table, and that's where it gets interesting. So his midline is a movement like standard monsters, but occasionally he's going to jump across the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And the
key is the payoff for the other players, or for the Skaven player to experience that, is huge.
Yes. And we have to make these monsters ever, quote unquote, a compelling choice.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
They have to overcome those meta weaknesses that they naturally have.
Right.
And those are only going to be overcome either if the utility is so high or the damage is so high that they become a strat, right? that they themselves fill a natural role of sitting in the middle of your units, Gothazar Harvester style, and being this great buff engine, right?
Yep.
Or going around the out
or
and being
punching above their weight,
way above their weight, where the opponent is forced to deal with them, right?
Yes. Yep.
The Emperor and the Landsrat and all eyes will turn towards Arrakis, and they will be forced to deal with us. Yes, exactly. I watched Dune this weekend again. Love that movie. Anyway, neither here nor there. Sandworms. That's big monster. Where's my sandworm scroll?
Poor Dreadmaw.
Yeah, well, he was weak anyways. He was a minor specimen, only 125 meters long. Anyways, so there's only one guy, Tom, we can finish on here. Okay, we can talk about some other errant scrolls, but I've got one more. Like, there's a few more I want to touch on lightly. But there's one guy we need to touch on just for Rob, the honest wargamer. Okay, the Tree Lord.
Womp womp womp.
Outclassed by his other tree brethren, right? And they're not even that good. So,
what is he doing?
Right, this guy. Okay.
This guy
over here. Let's talk about this guy. 6-edge move. I'm loving it already. Now, he does have a little teleport through the woods, so that's fine. 12 wounds on a 3-up save. Better than most of the saves we've seen thus far, which I do like. Like, I like that this dude is a big, thick tree. So, that's cool. Okay. He has a dumb Impaling Talons attack that's dumb.
Yep.
And he has his little sweeping blows, which are okay. They're okay. Yep. 4 attacks on 3s and 3s, neg 1, d6 damage. They're okay. It doesn't actually amount to much. Right? Yep. It sounds good because, again, anytime GW writes that d6 in their minds, that just must say 6. It does not. It most definitely does not.
There is the D there.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, there is. There is indeed. And he has a completely pointless Strangleboots attack that who cares? I guess you kind of care if you're in Living City, but that'd be the only time.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
I would fix this guy so fast.
Okay, hold on. I just want to cover his other interesting abilities, just to cover it real quick.
Yep.
One, the Spirit Path. So even though he is catastrophically slow, right, he can teleport through Wildwoods. So that's cool.
Yep.
And he does have old school Locus, effectively.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Where he can pick an enemy unit and stomp, and on a 4-up, he locuses them. So he has like old school regular Locus.
Sure.
Not Keeper of Secrets Locus, but normal Slaanesh hero Locus.
Yep.
The difference being he does it, of course, at the start of the combat phase, not the end of the charge phase, meaning that if somebody else fights at the start of the combat phase and it's their turn, they'll go before he gets to do this. I understand. I wrote the infographic on doing start of combat stuff. Please don't actually me. It's close enough for our purposes. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So, Tree Lord. Fix this guy, Tom. Fix him. I'm ready.
I can fix him in 2 words.
Oh, I'm ready. Okay. I'm excited.
How much is his points?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. The Tree Lord. The Tree Lord is 100 and... That can't be right. Did he go down?
Hold on. I think he did.
In the app, he's 180, but I think he's 160 now. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure he went down.
Regardless, at 160 to 180, I fixed him. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And we did this, by the way, back when we did the Sylvaneth book.
Sure. I love that I read him and I was like, there's no way that can be true. Nope, it is somehow true.
Yep.
He has 180 points.
Okay. Here it is.
That feels wrong.
So, you ready?
Yeah,
there you go. Add 2 words to his keywords.
I'm ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
Sylvaneth Wildwood.
Bam.
Done.
Yep. Like, you'd actually need to explain that somewhere. But I agree. Sure. That's the shortest road to a fix on this guy. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what I'm alluding to here, folks, is that the Tree Lord himself would count as a Wildwood. Okay? And so he would trigger all the allegiance abilities. And so what that would actually do is, interestingly, is that, like, in faction, it would give him a lot more utility because now like other units can teleport to him. He becomes a beacon of like teleportation, and like when your dryads are near, or not dryads, the branch wraiths. No.
Yeah, when you're everybody, like most people in the army who get bonuses for being near Wildwoods would get bonuses for being near him. Like Dryads have a bonus off that. Spirit of Durthu has a bonus off that, right? So like,
right.
yes, absolutely.
And you could like awaken the Wildwood
Off
and
him.
like shake him, right, and do AoE damage off of him. Like it just fixes itself.
Yeah,
like that's all you have to do. You add that keyword.
Yep.
And you give him that ability, and now he has a real utility and function in the army.
Yep.
I don't care if he's not doing anything on his profile. He's actually doing something then.
Yeah, he is a buff piece. This guy is begging to be a utility piece, a utility hero, because we already have the bully.
Or not a hero, but a utility monster.
Or sorry, a utility monster. Right? Thank you. I said the wrong word. A utility monster, because we already have the bully in this army. It's called the Spirit of Durthu. Right? Like that's what that dude is, right? And like that dude's meant to be a big giant bully running around with that stupid sword, yeah?
Yep.
And this guy is clearly like the clear role he should be occupying is the utility hero. He would buff almost every unit. Exactly what you said. He'd be a teleport beacon. You could awaken off of him. He would grant so many cool bonuses. Like it would just be great. Like, it's so easy. Just add those 2 words and a blurb of explanation of how it works in the book, and you are donezo.
And like go to his abilities page. Like you could add another ability that just says
he counts as Sylvaneth Wildwood, and
yes, like something about like something fluffy about carrying the spirit of Giron with him or something.
Yep.
And he awakens the landscape around him.
Yep.
He is so like the verdant life is so dripping from him that he awakens the world around him or something, whatever. And there you go. He's a Sylvaneth Wildwood. He counts as for all purposes. Done.
Right. If you need to add an exception, because as was just asked, Ghost Button said, would that keyword mean Sylvaneth could summon free tree lords every turn? One, I'm not sure I cared if they did.
Okay. Right.
Like, given what this guy brings to the table, I'm honestly not sure if I care. If you told me, so let me answer Ghost Button's question like this. If you told me, Vince, instead of summoning woods that are super annoying and you have to call the game to a halt so that your opponent can now spend 10 minutes playing the tip touching game to see how many tips they can get to touch, and then carefully measuring from every like space, all with the great benefit at the end of this tip touching game being that there's now a super annoying
terrain
piece on the board that's going to stick in my craw and be just so annoying for the rest of the game.
Yep.
Okay. Instead, what they get to do is just put this little monster on the table. I would read this profile and go, yes, 100%, that's fine. Yes. I accept.
Put that guy and his average of 4 damage on the table, please.
Please do this instead of putting down a regular Wildwood. Like, yes. That would be my best case scenario.
You can have him. That's fine.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind one bit. So, at any rate, that's the fix for this dude. If that really got in people's craw, of course, you could just say, you can't summon this guy. Anything that summons Sylvaneth Wildwoods may not summon him.
Right, or you would just say something like, rather than hit, like, you don't have to add the keyword. You could just say, in the ability, he counts as a Sylvaneth Wildwoods for effects that trigger off of, or blah, 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 blah. And you wouldn't even have to summon him. That said, I would rather Sylvaneth players be putting these guys on the table.
1,000 times, yes. I would rather them put these on the table. It's not even close. It's not even close. All right. I'm going to put this back down so we can see you again, Tom.
Done.
Okay. Any other monsters you want to touch on we haven't touched on yet?
I mean, like, I think that a lot of the critiques we've made. Yeah, so can I talk about some like fundamentals?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So I want to talk about the wide sweeping ways to fix monsters, just in general.
Yep.
Okay. Would be damage 1. Get rid of it.
Yeah. Rend none, get rid of it. Again, unless it's little dudes hanging on.
Yes.
Yes.
Rend none, get rid of it.
I want to see a lot more Rend 2 and Rend 3, period, by the way, on monsters as well. If anything should be the home of Rend 3, it should be it should be beings walking around the size of your house.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
That's pretty good at punching through armor.
Yep. That captures it.
Yep.
And so one is the damage. Another piece of this that I think could deserve, like, just from, like, as a general thing, would be, I would love to see lost my train of thought again. It's unfortunate. I would love to see the damn
it. It's all right, Tom. You think on it. I'll answer a question because that was the one I was going to talk about. So think in your head about it, okay? And I'll go.
Yep. Okay, I got it. So we talked about mobility being a big issue.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say. I don't know if this needs to be a keyword. I don't know if this needs to be a whatever. Okay. But I don't know if this is ability. I don't know if it's a trait of all monsters. But, like, when you have these melee monsters, they should simply be able to walk out of combat.
Yeah, to just leave. Sort of the Imperial Knight trick, right?
Yes.
Where you can just, like, no, I'm not in combat with... You're in combat with me. I'm not in combat with you.
Right,
okay?
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah, they should just walk away. Like, if they want to just step over, they should be able to do that and not be counted as retreating.
Right, absolutely. To you, the day that I came to your village was the most important day of your life. To me, it was Tuesday. Right? Like, that's... Yes. Like, these monsters should just be like, oh, look, hey, neat, there's these little guys fighting me. That's cool. I'm going to go over there now. Because it's just not a thing. In the same way that, like, if I'm walking around and there's, like, 10 gerbils swarming around my feet, I can just walk away from those anytime I want. I'm not like, curse these tiny furry beings. They've held me in place.
I need to retreat carefully.
Right. I mean, I would, because I don't want to step on little gerbils or hamsters or whatever. They're very cute little things, and I wouldn't want to squish one. So Vince would step away carefully. But, like, an angry giant in war would not care about accidentally squishing people as they're leaving. So, yes, they should absolutely be able to just disengage. Right? In much the same way, by the way, and this is trod territory. It's not like we're saying something that's complete nonsense. Not only did it do Imperial Knights do it in 40K, but the boats do it. Right? Like, the boats can just leave combat and shoot because, again, like, it's a boat. Right.
Flying high, baby. Yeah, and
even if they don't, they can just literally back out and shoot. They don't even have to fly high. They can just go fly away.
Yeah, they should just be able to walk out of combat. Right. All this big stuff.
Yep.
Yes. I'll as well with that. I think more monsters should have something like destructive bulk. If that monster gets the charge,
yeah, sure.
Like, that should mean something when they come in.
Absolutely. Like, when a monster hits on impact, they should be doing some kind of damage. Right. We've handed out this, like, roll a 2+, you take D3 mortal wounds thing to everybody. Blood Crushers and Skull Crushers and everybody who's riding any kind of, like, pseudo chariot gets it.
Except the 20-foot tall monsters.
Right. And, this is one place where this sort of was captured because in old Warhammer Fantasy, because you remember big monsters
impact
had either impact hits and or stomp. Right. Where they could just stomp at the end of combat.
And so I would love if that was re-implemented almost system-wide for these big, bashy, again, a lot for these, more for the bully monsters than for the other stuff. But that type of design direction, I think, would be valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to address a couple things that were asked in the comments. So the one thing was, what about giving them the ogre type ability where they count as multiple models? I don't want to do that. And I have a very simple answer why. That's not actually what these guys are for, right?
Right.
Because then
you're confusing battle
roles. Yeah. Right. The role of the monster is not to go stand still and sit on a point.
No.
Okay.
It's to punch things in the face.
It's either be utility and buff things, a la Gothazar and other things we said, or it's to go punch things in the face. I'm trying to imagine the world where the commander's like, Gorgon, beast of utter chaos and monster of destruction,
Here.
just stand there. No, don't.
Guard this tombstone.
Yeah, just stand right there. Don't move. Don't go kill everything. Stand. Right. Shh, stay. Tritos. Like, that's just not what they should be doing. Like, you want things to have defined roles. And my argument is monsters fall into one of two roles very naturally. Buffing the things around them or killing everything in their sight. Non-hero
monsters
fall into one of two roles very naturally. Utility pieces, buff pieces, and bully units. And bullies are all about going there and kicking things in the face, right?
Yep.
And again, hero monsters are a totally different, bag of
they're
chips.
doing different things. They're functioning different in different ways on the battlefield.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that this segment is about non-hero monsters.
Exactly. And, to me, that's why I don't want them to have the rule. I like rules being... Just because one army got a good idea doesn't mean we should just start passing it out like candy. Like the on 6s you get 2 hits thing is now in like every army in the universe.
Poor Doc. It was so special.
Sure. And then every army got it all the time. Just everybody does that now.
Yeah.
And
it's like terrain.
Right. Like, I like that that's a thing that ogres have, right?
Right.
I don't want these big monsters to be playing in the objective holding space. One, it's misaligned to the verisimilitude of what I would expect them to be doing in world. Two, I think it's actually it then distracts from their utility, which should be going to the enemy and killing them, right?
Right.
Not standing still.
Right.
And so, like, you have other things in your army meant to sit on points. Those are anvils, right? That's what you generally want.
Right.
And I think, to me, that's the right answer why you don't want to go that direction. Somebody also asked a question earlier about the regular steam tank, and yes, I think the regular steam tank is horrendously underwhelming. I think the commander version is like, whatever, he's okay. But
he's acceptable.
He's acceptable, but he's a hero on top. They ruined him once they took away his thermal rider cloak. Whatever. Not this episode. But the regular steam tank, I mean, it is horrendously underwhelming.
Yeah.
It is a random movement. The best you can do is get +2 to it, so it can be, I mean, like, outside of, there's other things you can do to buff it, like Tempest Eye and stuff like that. But like, on base scroll, it's 2d6 +2 when it's unwounded.
Yeah.
Right? And it has one shot with its cannon that hits on a 4. Now, again, there are ways to buff that in army and synergize it. Sure. No disagreement.
But when you have a shooting attack hitting on a floor, womp, womp, womp.
Right, so you're getting 1 attack, hitting on a 4, wounding on a 2, -2 Ren, D6 damage. And look, sometimes it's crazy what'll happen. In that game, by the way, I played this weekend, where I was playing my Whirlwind's Edge army, my opponent did have a regular steam tank and did have a steam tank commander. And round 1, without any bonuses, hitting on a 5, he shot my Knight Venator, who I was in Tempest Eye. So my Venator was in cover. No, in cover.
What up?
In round 1, I was 1 up. And I had a unit nearby me, so I'm -1 to hit because of Lookout Sir. So the cannon's hitting on a 5.
So that dude should be immune to damage.
Wounding on a 2 with a 1-up save. And a 6-up after save because there was a Luminarch near him as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
He got shot off the table, didn't he?
1 shot. Whammo. Took a cannonball in the face. It was like, need a 5 to hit, rolled the 5. Wounds, because I mean you only need a 2 to wounds. That's not that surprising. I need a 3 to save, even with the -2. Rolled a 2. He rolls damage. 5 damage. All right, I'm like, I just need 1 6. 0 6s. Okay, he's dead. Just caught the cannonball hard, and I was like, well, that was not the expected outcome of that one.
Oh.
So sure, that can sometimes happen.
Yeah.
But what will more likely happen is basically every other shot he took with that regular steam tank that game, which was just like, I missed. I did 1 damage. And I was just like, it never did anything of value the rest of the game.
Sure.
Right.
But it traded for that 100 points in Knight Venator.
It certainly did. It certainly did. And so like, it is a horrendously underwhelming piece because it doesn't have the long rifle when the hero's not there. It has a very short range machine gun that again has no rend, and it has some pretty underwhelming melee attacks. Like that, I love the concept of a steam tank is like the coolest thing. By the way, how I would fix that is I would make it the defensive monster.
Yeah, sure.
Okay? Because it is a giant steel tank. Its literal
Sure.
point is to be a tank. I would fix its cannon a little bit. I would extend the range of its machine gun a little bit. I'd make it slightly more offensive, but I would make it like the only unit in the game with a 2-up save, and I would give it a 5-up after save.
Sure, and I would give it some short range flamethrower.
Sure,
some type of crowd control, so to make it truly anti-infantry.
Sure, like we know you can make tanks work. You have a whole game where tanks are a major part of the game.
It's true.
Where you just keep they like Space Marines got like 3 more tanks this last weekend. So yeah. I know that you can make tanks work, GW. How about we just make this one tank work? You've got 57 tanks if you look in 40K.
I'm sure you can find a couple that have really interesting functions and bring that over.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So yes, that's what I'm gonna say there. So the steam tank definitely needs some love. All right. Did we miss anything, Tom?
I think monsters are fixed.
I think we fixed them. So that's the key. If you have other ideas for any of the monsters we've talked about, or your own personal favorites, things you'd want to see improved, hey, by all means, please throw that down in the in the comments, or chat about that, or share that with us. I know I'm super biased because I am such a Timmy, but when I look at the kits that I want to buy, that I want to put on the table, that I think are super fun, it's almost always the monsters, right? It's almost always those things that motivate me because they look so cool, they're so impressive, they feel just Age of Sigmar to me.
It's so funny because when I look across my armies, I don't have a lot of monsters.
Yeah, I mean, I had let's do it, Tom. You ready? Here we go. I had 9 Sphinxes back when I had Tomb Kings. 9. Okay. What do we got? I've got 5 Gorgons. I've got an army of giants already. I have 10 giants in an army, right? I have 2 Archaons. That should say something right there. I have 5 Chimera. I have 3 Cockatrices. I've got what do I have? 4 or 5 Tree Lords, something like that. 3 Stegodons in my Seraphon army, plus the big guy. I love monsters. Okay? I think monsters are sweet.
So, non-hero monsters, are you ready?
Yeah. Oh, I also have 2 Slaughter Brutes and a Mutalith Vortex Beast.
Ironclad?
Yeah, sure.
Frigate?
Sure. The fact that you've stalled out now speaks volumes.
Wait for it. War Shrine?
Oh, okay.
The Chaos War Shrine?
Yeah, sure,
which is not a hero.
Nope, that counts. I'm with you.
Black Coach.
Okay. Nice.
There you go.
I'll take it.
There you go. That's the totality.
Yeah.
From my 7 or 8 armies.
Sure.
Of those, because they just aren't doing it. They're not doing the work.
Yeah.
They're not worth fielding. Now I have things like in boxes, but I haven't built them because why?
What monster do you have in a box? Looking over there, what do you got in a box?
The Colossal Squig.
You know what you should do, Tom? Now that you're kind of stuck around.
Actually, you know what? Sorry, I don't have the Colossal Squig anymore. I don't. I don't think I have any monsters. No, because I sold my Mangler. Nope.
Okay.
I have 2 Skycutters up there.
That doesn't count. That's not even a thing. All right.
No,
well, I was going to tell you could have got out a monster, and that'd be a fun project for you to just work on. Because you can work on those very, sit down, do 30 minutes, and just get a little bit of work on a monster. Right?
Yeah, I don't have any monsters because monsters are bad.
Well,
I have 6 Magma Droths, but those don't count either.
Sure. Well, here we go. All right, folks. Like I said, don't forget, send Tom the hobby inspiration. Let's see it. That brings us to the end. Like I said, if you've got thoughts on monsters, drop in the comments. Don't forget about the survey. It's in the description. If you haven't already taken the balance survey, please take the balance survey. Link is down there. It takes less than a minute. It would be deeply appreciated. Please give this video a like if you liked it, if you enjoyed this discussion. Just remember, it's as easy as like moving your mouse over like this. Just here, clicky, and then that really helps help other people find this discussion. And the more people who find this discussion and complain about monsters, the more likely we are to see change. Let's begin a movement right here. Let's, much like the Gorgon himself, start the wave of monsters need to be fixed. With that, I will say thank you very much, everybody. We very much appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday.